Welcome to How to Live Slow, the podcast where we discuss slow living for the modern woman and help you design an intentionally slower family life. I'm Rachelle Glendon, your personal slow living coach and host of this podcast. I know all about busy, but I love living slow. Enjoy the show. Well, hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is all about homeschooling. It's part of my January series where we're exploring some different lifestyle options. And I know that going back to school in a couple of weeks, some of you might be considering taking the leap into homeschooling. So I thought, myself included, and we still haven't quite made our decision, but I thought I would bring one of my Instagram friends, Eva Van Strijp, who is a homeschooling mum of 6. She's been homeschooling for 11 years. She has a lot of experience and knowledge to share with us. She also has a couple of businesses that she runs, and her and her husband and her 6 children live on a hobby farm. So she is the perfect guest for us. We're going to be talking about the pros and cons of homeschooling, what it's like, why to get started, the daily rhythm, the benefits and downsides, how to fit in me time, any hesitations and resistance you might have, and why it can be a really beautiful decision that doesn't need to take you away from all the other things that you want to achieve in your life, how it can really be beneficial and flexible for your family. So if you're considering homeschooling this year, this is an episode for you. Or even if you're not considering homeschooling longer term, but you're thinking about taking some time off to go traveling as a family or other kind of scenarios, this might be a really great way to start exploring how this could look for your family. So enjoy the episode and have an amazing week. Cool. Okay, so hi Eva, how are you going today?
I'm good, Rachelle. Excited to be talking to you about homeschooling today.
I know, I'm so excited to talk about this. It's something that I've wanted to have a guest for ages. I've really been exploring homeschooling for ourselves, so perfect timing. So let's just get straight into it. Tell us about you and your homeschooling life, like why you started, how many kids you have.
All right, let's go. So I've got 6 kids and we have always homeschooled. So my oldest is 15 and the youngest is 5. So this is like our 11th year homeschooling. And I myself was actually homeschooled from year 5 onwards. So it's something that I had always considered that I would do with my kids, and my husband wasn't opposed. So we did it. Yeah, and I think like the main reason that I probably started for my own children was because I just wanted to keep them home a bit longer. I didn't want to send them off at 5, whatever, and just see how we went. Like I'm very much love and adore homeschooling, but in the back of my mind, it's always, if it's not working, we can send them to school. So I'm not like, it's not, this is it, like forever, but it is working, and I'm a firm believer of not fixing stuff that's not broken. So while it's working and working beautifully, then that's what we'll do. Yeah, so we've got, my oldest is in year 10 and the youngest is, doing sort of kindy work, which is, I think, Queensland is year 1. Maybe prep, maybe?
Yeah, we have prep here. Yeah.
So, yeah, and then all in between. So 2 of my boys in the middle are doing much of the same work. So if they need my help, I help them together. So that helps a lot in terms of managing multiple kids. I don't do much with the year 10 girl because she is extremely self-directed and just knows where her passions are at the moment. So she's just following those. The main thing I do with her is I read the novels that she's reading. So she's about to do To Kill a Mockingbird. So I've read that just to have an understanding of what it's about and, discussion topics that she might want to talk about and things like that. So, and then, the 2 younger ones who I've got, so the big girl and then the 2 big boys, which I do a lot of work together with, and then the 2 younger ones, they are separate ages, so they are probably the hardest at the moment because they're just coming into being able to read, just not quite there to be able to self-direct yet. So that's probably take the most time. And then the little girl hangs out a lot with the 15-year-old, so that's a help as well. But yeah, it's massive juggling, balancing act all the time. But I think life is, so whatever, like it's just a natural extension of life. So
amazing. And so that was going to be one of my questions, like how do they interact with each other, having the 6 of them, like how do they go with, like explain to us like kind of like what a day looks like for you. I know there's probably no typical day, and that's the whole purpose of homeschooling.
Yeah.
But do you get out and see other people and things like that?
Yeah. When we're not in lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
not this year.
We start every day at 8 a.m. and we have finished bookwork by midday, like without exceptions.
Wow.
And then the
Yeah.
afternoon is just for free play or music lessons or sport or friends or work or whatever's going on. We live on a bit of a hobby farm, so there's always something to do outside, and my husband's home a lot. He works from home a fair bit at the moment, so they just hang out. The boys will do woodwork. They'll go down to my dad's, lives down the road. They'll go and help him build something. We'll have friends over for footy, whatever. Like it, that's probably my favourite thing about homeschooling is the flexibility, and that you have the whole afternoon just to hang out and enjoy each other's company and basically do whatever you want. So it's really relaxing and enjoyable. It's not that massive rush at the end of the day to, get home, get changed, do jobs, homework, dinner, bed. Like it's just relaxed, and it's a huge benefit, I think, of homeschooling.
Yeah, that's one thing that's probably most appealing to me is like we've just got the two boys and with our first year experiencing school in prep, and I've just noticed that he just doesn't really have the energy or capacity for people or other activities after school or even on the weekends. We have to really manage his energy quite a lot, which is one of the main reasons why I think like I'm fundamentally not against school necessarily. It might not be like my perfect choice, but just like seeing how he's going, I think, oh, homeschooling would just be so much easier.
Yeah, and I think like I've definitely spoken to parents who they put their kid in for a couple of years and then they pull them out and they're like, the change is insane because there's not that pressure to just show up all the time. Even just they might be really loving school, but it still takes a lot of energy for a child to keep showing up and showing up. So you sort of remove that expectation a little bit and they can, I'm not fundamentally against school either, and I think it's definitely works really well for a lot of kids, but so does homeschooling. So I think it's super important to have an open mind and go, okay, if I'm going to try this, there are lots of really great schools, especially in small country towns or outlying areas, so suburbs, where the teachers just want what's best for the kid. They're really happy to work with parents to be flexible. So if that means, I've got friends just down the road who took their boys out when they got to year 6. So they had that year at home with mum before going to high school, caught up on anything they were a bit behind on, just had that one-on-one time, that slow down, and then went back to school for high school. So I think it's nice to have that flexibility and to live in a country where that's still legal.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I do have another question to move on to about like the styling and everything, but you did say that because you went to school and you left school from year 5, so you kind of had that experience yourself. Do you remember what it was like that deschooling process?
I loved it. Like we actually were so excited. We started the day before we were supposed to. We came home from school and we were going to start. It might have been a Friday. Anyway, we started on like the Saturday or Sunday, started the homeschooling. I was pumped. And my mum was really super organised. Like I have a very different homeschooling approach to what my mum did. But I think that is largely to do with my kids are different to us. I was one of 4 girls, whereas I've got 3 boys and 3 girls, and they're all wild. So it's a really different experience. But I think that's also another benefit of homeschooling is you can just tailor it to the kid. Yeah, you just got that option. So I did high school teaching at uni. So I did spend a little bit of time in high schools before I had babies. Like that was, again, a great experience. Like I loved all my experiences, but definitely feel like it's just nice to be able to have like I've said before, flexibility. I keep coming back to flexibility, but the flexibility to swap and change, and it's not set in stone. Like we're human and our needs change all the time and our experiences impact how we respond, and I think it's nice, even within a family, to be able to say, okay, this kid's doing really well at home, this kid not so much. Let's, send one and not the other. It can work. It can absolutely work.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I like how you've sort of said that. And do you think that your background in high school teaching has helped? And, would you say that don't let that discourage people who haven't got teaching experience?
Oh, definitely. People do say to me, like, oh, you homeschool because you're a teacher, you were a teacher. But that's not what I think I always would have, because I had a good experience of it myself and I wanted to give that to my children. I think that it did not help me at all in the early years because it was high school. So I had no idea what I was doing with kindergarten, year 1, year 2. I know that sounds ridiculous because it's very basic stuff that they're learning. But I remember having in New South Wales, we could choose to register. And when we register, someone comes to our home and just has a chat with us about what we've got, our resources and, kind of our schedule and what's going to happen. And I've always found those visits really helpful because they're usually from primary school principals or, who were used to be primary school principals, and they've always had amazing feedback and insight into what I'm doing with the little kids. But now coming into high school kids, definitely, I specialise in history and English, so it's helping massively. And I'm really enjoying it too, because they were my passions. I'm really loving helping the kids learn these subjects as well. So that's helped.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. I feel like I have heard a lot of homeschooling mums say that they sent their kids to school to learn to read, and once they could read, they started homeschooling them. So those first couple.
It's not a bad idea. It can get hard. I had my first child was a really great quick reader, and the second kid couldn't read till he was 10. As soon as he hit 10, and then he had read 100 novels in a year. So I never had to worry, but I did. Of course, we always worry. And then, the third kid read really quickly, and now the fourth and fifth are struggling. And it's just, they're all different. And I think, yes, I probably could have sent them off to school and maybe they would have learned. Maybe they wouldn't have as well, and maybe they would have struggled more. So I think there's definitely, you've got to give yourself the grace to just let them learn at their own pace and not second guess, if they were at school, they'd do this better. Or, if you're sending your kids to school, you can't second guess that yet and say, if they're at home, this. You've just got to give it a chance sometimes and see how it all works out.
Yeah, and I can imagine that for a child who, traditionally is struggling, if they were at school, there would be a lot of pressure and a lot of feelings of failure, whereas you can totally skip that bit.
Yeah, 100%. It got me down. It didn't worry him.
Yeah.
He'd not care less. And then when he hit 10 and he got a novel for his birthday, it was I think it was Brother Band or Ranger's Apprentice, and he ripped through that in a week, and I went, wow, you can read. So that was it really reminded me that we just have to be patient, because everybody learns at a different pace. Even as adults, we learn at different paces, and there's no time limit. There's no, you have to be learning to read by this age or this stage or whatever, or, whatever it is they're trying to learn does not have to be done on a schedule. So that's another part of homeschooling that I love.
Yes. You're making it sound very appealing.
It is. It's a really great lifestyle.
So, but from a practical point of view then, and you sort of touched on that with the home visits, what is the paperwork like? Did you say you're in New South Wales?
Yep.
And I'm in Queensland. I'm sure there's lots of listeners in Victoria and other states, and I'm sure it's all slightly different, but just in general, what is required if you're going to be a homeschooler?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about the other states, and they do differ a bit, but in New South Wales, you can choose to register, and you don't have to, you can apply for an exemption, but we've always registered because whatever, I've never had a problem with the concept, and someone will just come. So you put, it's 2 pages of paperwork, it's not much, it's just your basic details, and, they'll ask why you want to homeschool and how old the child is and things like that. Send that off. A week later, they'll give you a phone call, arrange a time to come and see you. Although this latest inspection, we call it an inspection. It's not really. It's just a chat. Don't be scared of. The latest one that we had in July was via Skype because of COVID stuff. So, but previously, I've had 4 or 5 different ones, and they've always been fantastic. They come to your home, they have a look at the kids' work. They're really encouraging and enthusiastic, and just give you some pointers or say, yeah, this is great, have you considered this or whatever. They're just helpful, and they're meant to help you. I don't know why, what the purpose is. There are some people who would say that it's just the government wanting to sort of keep an eye on homeschoolers because they can't really do that any other way. And maybe that's the case, but it doesn't worry me. I haven't got anything to hide. So I'm happy for them to come in and see what we're doing and have a chat with another human being. So, and that they can then give you 2 years. So they only come every 2 years. So it's not like you're doing it every 6 months or anything.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, and I can imagine it's maybe to capture the people who, you're obviously putting in quite a lot of effort and doing homeschooling properly, but I don't know if there's people who do it to kind of get out of...
Yeah, I don't know. I think,
that.
I feel like it's a lot of work if you're trying to get out of something, it's easier to send them to school, I think. Yeah, and I think, the other thing that what they want to see really is that you have a way of record keeping. Yeah. So understanding what your child has learned and where they're at, and some kind of schedule. It doesn't have to be a hard and fast. And I've found I'll set a schedule week 1 of the year, and it's by week 5 it's changed. So it's never set in stone, but just some kind of basic idea of what you're doing. And in terms of record keeping, it can literally just be the books that your kid's using. So you don't have to write it all down. It's just you can just show that book, and this is what they're learning. That's the record.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, and I
It's not.
suppose, what about, like, now that the kids are in high school, one of the hesitations that a lot of people I've heard, in the groups and things that I've joined, is homeschooling is great for primary years, but, in high school when they want to go to uni and things, is that actually like,
I
yeah,
went to uni. My sister's a GP, so she went to uni. It's not something that I have encountered difficulty with. Actually, a bunch of the friends that I grew up with all went to uni. So, it's not something that stops you. So there's just different avenues. What I did was I did an undergraduate Bachelor of Arts at home. Well, not at home. I moved out of home, but I did it by correspondence. And then I did my Diploma of Education at uni, so I went on campus. My sister, who did medicine, she did an SAT exam.
Yeah.
And also some undergraduate science units. So she was doing like a Bachelor of Science. And then she only did a few. I don't think she did, maybe half. Then did the SAT and then got into uni based off the results of the SAT. It's not just an HSC that gets you entrance into uni. There's so many different avenues.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, well, they probably just have to go to high school so they can do that. But I sort of see it as, well, I struggled at uni because I was so used to having it all prescribed out to me and that, like, learning how to learn and be self-directed was a bit of a thing. Whereas, like you said, your oldest kids are very self-directed. You don't really even need to.
Oh, look, I think that's the whole point. They need to be self-directed because I'm not always going to be there to hold their hand. Like, they have to be able to. My oldest boy is 13. By 14, he's got to be self-directed. Like, that's the goal. He's got to be doing the bulk of his schoolwork by himself. If he needs help, 100%, come and see me. But he's got to be self-directed. Otherwise, he's going to struggle. Like, that's kind of a key goal of homeschooling, I feel, is to sort of release them from that, needing me all the time. They can find the answers.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm just going to presume. Yeah, that actually sounds really incredible. What a gift to give your kids, actually, rather than something that's going to hold them back. Amazing. So yeah, I'm sure that's going to help a lot of people with, it's not a full commitment. Like, you don't have to stick to it either, do you? You can always just try it, like you said.
Yeah, and I think it's nice to be able to not consider yourself a teacher either. Like, I don't consider that I really teach my kids anything. I facilitate their learning. So I help them to find the answers for themselves and to figure it out on their own. So basically, beyond teaching them to read, which is that's pretty clear that's teaching, once they can read, they're really and truly, the idea is that they can work it out for themselves. They're to help, they're to facilitate, they're to support, they're to give them the resources, but really important that they do it themselves. And 100%, you don't have to just, we're going to homeschool and that's it forever, or we're going to send our kids to school forever. You've got nothing to lose by having a go and by let's just try one term. Like, especially if the child is perhaps coming out of, let's say they're coming, okay, let's take your child, for instance, if he's doing kindergarten, what did you call it? Prep, yeah. Is that the first year of school in Queensland?
It is. Yeah. It's the equivalent of kindergarten in New South Wales. Okay.
So let's say he's done prep and then you might take him out for term 1 next year and then it's not working, so you put him back in term 2. The thing is, he'd still be going back in, if you send him to the same school, back with the same kids.
Yeah.
He knows the teachers. It's not this huge change, but you've had a go and you've tried and, otherwise you'll always wonder. You're like, could it have worked, So if you feel it's not going to be insanely disruptive and might actually be beneficial for him, then it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, that's really true. I actually have said, I know the outcome of going to school. That path. It's that it's being the brave to try the other path and see what happens. And it's all the unknowns of, that sort of hesitations or the resistance that come up. And even just when you're not certain of your decision and then trying to explain it. Or, it feels like you're justifying then, doesn't it? But
Oh, yeah. And I think everything we do as parents is we feel like someone's judging us, and they probably are. Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, they probably are. But like I said, who cares? And we're probably subconsciously judging others as well.
Yeah, 100%.
We're humans, right?
Yep. There's a lot to be said for just letting people do what they got to do and doing what you got to do yourself and just not having an opinion on it. It's nice, actually. I'm really enjoying growing older and understanding that I don't have to have an opinion on everything. It's very freeing.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah. So, and on that though, what would you say to someone who, or what are some of the other hesitations that you've heard people say when they find out you're a homeschooler? Or I'm assuming because you're online, you've got lots of online presence, people always ask you, do they, about your...
I do have a lot of, so on Instagram, a lot of people will ask me for advice on homeschooling, especially over the last year. Like people are just in certain states sick of in and out of lockdown and things like that. So they're like, well, I may as well be homeschooling and actually running the show.
Yeah.
For the most part, people are really positive and supportive, and a lot of people say, oh, I wish I could, or oh, I could never. Lots of people say, I can never do that. I really feel like we need to break down the barriers around it being this big deal. Like it's just not. Learning is so much a part of just life and just living. And if we sort of looked at homeschooling from that perspective as well, we'd realise that it's not this huge big thing. And I think too, a lot of people will look at it and think, well, I've got to bring the school into the home and it's got to be almost exactly the same. But the whole point is that it's not exactly the same. So overwhelmingly positive response to the fact that we homeschool. And then probably the second most common thing is, oh my gosh, but how do they socialise? My children are very sociable, and I've never had a problem with them talking to other people. They've got lots of friends. We do sport, they do music, we go to church. They got, we live in a tiny country town. So there's, they know virtually everyone. And it's nice, I think, to be able to have the kids able to just socialise with different ages and different groups of people all the time, or any time, as opposed to just 6 hours a day. They're within this specific age group. I think it's nice to have that as a kid growing up, nice to have that flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's right. Like that's the whole thing of school, isn't it? You're put with one age group and that's it. Whereas they've got each other, and it sounds like you do lots of activities and you actually leave the house quite a bit.
We do, yeah.
Do things, yeah. So then it sounds amazing. There's clearly a lot of benefits to it. And so then my next question would be, well, are there any downsides or times that you might go,
Yeah, there's always downsides to everything. Look, because you put this question in an email, and so I was thinking about it, I honestly can't say that I have ever doubted the decision to homeschool or questioned it or thought, oh, maybe we need to send the kids to school. But there are always downsides. Like every day's got a down. Probably the biggest thing this year that I've struggled with is one of the kids struggling to read. So I've got the three oldest fluent readers, the two middles almost there, and then the little one is getting there as well. But one of the middle ones really struggling, and it's more I really need to just have patience with the process, because I know that it will come. I saw it with my older son. It will absolutely come, but it'll come in his time, not in mine. And so it's just an enormous lesson in patience, as parenting is, I think, and learning to just accept where they're at, because when it helps us when we accept where our kids are at, and it also helps them. We're not putting that pressure on them to do something that they're not ready for, they just can't grasp. So that's definitely been the struggle for me probably this year. The dominant one is, why can't you read yet? Oh, that's right, we're practicing grace here. And, it's just in a dialogue. Yeah, I think each year probably there's been something like that I've struggled with, but I just know that it wouldn't improve at school. Like, as in, school would not be a quick fix for that problem. So, yeah, it's not something that I've ever sort of gone, oh, maybe if I sent them to school, this would fix it. Yeah, it's just, I just know that it wouldn't. We're just going to give him more time.
What a lesson to learn, though, over and over again for yourself as well. And that's...
Yeah. And like, look, when you've got a few kids, it's like you feel a little bit like, do I have to teach this again? Do I have to teach 3 + 3? But whatever, like we teach them to hold a spoon and use the toilet and make the bed, everything else. So why not this?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And a beautiful gift in a lot of ways, I can see. Yeah. So I know that a lot of people are probably going, yeah, I'd love to do that, but it sounds like you never get any time for yourself. And I know that you've also got multiple businesses that you run as well. So now, obviously, this is a slow living podcast, so we're all about...
Yeah. Don't do what I know.
But I know that you also live a pretty slow life, and homeschooling sounds to me like has supported you to do the things you want to do rather than take you away. But could you talk a bit about that dynamic, because that might be a bit of a concept for people?
Yeah, definitely. So I have changed a lot over the years. When my kids were little, my husband was working away a lot. He's in the army. He's still in the army, but not full time. And so he was away a lot, like 10 weeks at a time, 5 months one time. So my businesses were my sanity savers. So I would be with the kids all day and then I'd put them to bed and then I would work on my business, and that was such a blessing to have a business in that time. I really enjoyed the challenge of it. I enjoyed the friendships that I made and just enjoyed that adult time, I suppose you'd say. And then as I grew older, I guess, you can't stay up all night at certain times in your life. It's a bit stupid and it hurts. And my husband was home a lot more in the evening. So that dynamic then had to change and I started working more in the afternoons. So like I said before, we do book work 8 to 12. And then if there's anything on in the afternoon, that's the focus. So like, for example, this afternoon we've got music lessons. So 2 of my kids, I'll take them into town for music. I will sit in the car and work while they're doing music.
Yeah.
If we were staying home, so we'll be home tomorrow afternoon, I will feed them all lunch and then I will say, okay, I'm going to go work for a couple of hours. You need to just go play. So they'll be outside running around, whatever they're doing, building forts and playing on the trampoline or whatever, and I will do my work. So it's often interrupted, but I've learned to work with that, like whatever, it is what it is. And I'm sure if I was working in an office in a building, someone would interrupt me as well. So it's not like, you know what I mean? I just, whatever. So yeah, that's my afternoons are my main ways that I work, and the kids do generally respect that I need that time, because I feel like I love working on businesses, and so I think it actually makes me a better mother to have that time. So it's not really negotiable. But yeah, definitely I wouldn't say to people if they're not currently running a business to just go, oh, we're going to start homeschooling and run a business this year. Like it's probably just take one thing at a time and then bring it in slowly. But yeah, it's totally workable. It doesn't. And the other thing is too, I think often when we say we run our home business or we're an entrepreneur or whatever, there's this ridiculous idea that we have to hit 6 figures in the first year or something, or we have to, but it doesn't have to be like that. I'm very comfortable with where my businesses are at, and that's good enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not making millions. That's fine. I'm more than happy with that. If I was making millions, I would be probably slightly crazy. And I would have had to either outsource or move on, because that's not sustainable for me. So it needs to be sustainable so that I can continue to work in it because I enjoy it.
Yeah, such a really good point. Like, so much going on there. Like, I totally get it, what you're saying there, that like almost having your business, which is your thing that you love to do, is self-care in a way. It's like 100%. That me time. And it just happens to make you money rather than having to spend money.
Yeah, definitely. And not everybody would consider running their own business to be self-care, but it definitely for some people it is. So if that's you and me and whoever was listening, that's not something to feel guilty about, like you taking the time. And
yeah, and it's the way that you do it, right? And like you said, how trying to recreate school at home, and that can cause problems. It's the same with work. If you start a business, but you try to recreate like your 9 to 5 at home, you just get more of what you're trying to get away from. But if you create a business that feels like you're doing what you love and you're doing it in the hour while you're waiting in the car, and, you know, it doesn't have to look like sitting at your desk for 8 hours a day. And if it pays the bills or if it, you know, helps with the mortgage repayment, extra awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's so good. Do you want to share a little bit about what your businesses are?
Yeah, sure.
Out of interest,
yeah. So I've run a cloth nappy company for 15 years. My first daughter was breech and had hip dysplasia, so she needed a type of cloth nappy that I didn't really have access to. My mum had given me these nappies, it didn't work with it. So that was kind of led me on the journey of making them, and we developed our own brand and have been doing that 15 years. And then I also am a brand ambassador for Young Living essential oils. So low-tox living and just, slow low-tox living. So those two. And they're so related too. Like I feel like as my children have grown up and we're no longer using nappies, I'm still able to focus that passion with the low-tox living and essential oils. So it's just a nice little, nice combination, I think.
Yeah. And a good opportunity to teach your kids about business from a practical point of view. Do you get them involved at all?
Yes, so they've helped. Like whenever we have shipments coming in, they'll help with that. And my daughter runs her own business making scrunchies, and she does markets and things like that. So I think it's really good for the kids to see, one, how to run a home business, even if we're not doing it the way the gurus say we should do it, and two, that their mother is putting aside time to do something that she loves. And three, that mum is able to help support the family and that dad backs her in that. So I think they're all really, great lessons for them.
Yeah, and things that you wouldn't necessarily learn at school. I'd say
Yeah.
that those are the
Yeah,
sorts
absolutely.
of things, like you
Yeah.
finish school and then those are the things you go out to learn
Yes,
on your
100%.
own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so to wrap up then, what would you say to someone who wants to give it a go, like, and might be a bit scared to do so? Like that one big thing that you wish people would know, or I don't know.
Oh gosh, I think it is really, really important to be able to break away from whatever it is that we're currently doing and try something new. So whether that is homeschooling, working, where we're living, whatever it is that we currently feel like we're locked into, we have to do some serious mind work and realize that we're not locked into it. We can change, and then just have the guts to have a go, because you might find you love it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Rachelle.
That's it for another episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to connect further, the show notes from today's episode, including all the social links and free resources, are over on my website, howtoliveslow.com/podcast. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll speak with you again soon.